welcome back, book besties, to another book review. Today is another indie book review, and I'm so excited to review A Blossom at Midnight. Hopefully you're not following me on my story graph, otherwise you've seen some spoilers here already because, well, I leave my reviews on the story graph first. Anyway, let's just go ahead and dive right in. If you've seen one of my book reviews before, we go over a couple very specific things so that all of the book reviews are kind of the same, and I'm not just willy-nilly blathering on for 30 minutes. So let's start off with the book description. Jessamine has always known her place, beneath her mother's rule, outside the circles of true power and far from the riches of the royal court. But when the Calyx, an elite retinue of magical performers, offers her a place among them, everything changes. With two rare familiars and a talent for flora magic, Jess is thrust into the heart of the scented court and into the path of secrets she was never meant to learn. Across the continent, Lake, once a court favorite, now a disgraced fae, drowning in wine and sorrow, is ordered to be his queen's eyes in distant Solana. There he finds a woman held captive by Prince Farachek, a ruthless noble whose ambitions could shatter kingdoms. The woman is betrothed, silenced, and precious to more than just Lake. When the king refuses to act, Jess and Lake make a choice that could brand them traitors. Together, they will uncover buried truths, challenge a rising tyrant, and ignite a rebellion that could cost them everything. For the audience of this book, I really had a hard time choosing the best readers to read this series, but I've got a couple good recommendations, I hope. I would recommend this to any readers who enjoy fae fantasy. That said, at least from my perspective, I didn't see a whole lot of your traditional fae tropes. For instance, towards the very beginning of the book, Jess uses her full legal name and says thank you and makes a deal with a fae, and I, as a fae reader, was literally freaking out, thinking, oh no, this is bad, but this is not that kind of fae fantasy. One of the things that the author calls this book particularly is noble bright, and I had to look into this subgenre because I wasn't super familiar with it. And Noble Bright is books that are a little lighter and don't super rely on darkness and things that are on the more evil side of things. This series is technically an epic fantasy. I think it's 5 books long, and I would recommend it for anybody who really likes slow-paced, meticulous world building. This is so well thought out and planned. I so admire this in an author, and it really shows that this author went into this series knowing where the whole overall narrative was going, and it is just so well written. And one other thing, I would recommend this for people who really enjoy mysterious magic systems. We get a little bit of it in this book, but I don't feel like it's explained well enough. And so I really hope that we see more of it as we go forward throughout the series, and so I'm really interested in that. Our main setting in this book is the Scented Court. It is described as this beautiful kind of opulent castle, and Jessamine starts to live here and honestly, I don't feel like we got a lot of description, but it's so beautifully described, but I don't feel like it's lived in quite yet, just because of everything that was happening. I'm thinking that we're probably going to get more of that in the next book. But I really love that the king and queen of this scented court of Solana, I really feel like they're good people, because I don't want to get too far into spoilers, but there's a choice point in the book where they could just bring a foot down and crush people. And they don't instantly do that. And I really admire that they are willing to listen before judging. We have 3 main characters in this series, and all of them are narrators. And I really admire that the author has made all 3 of these characters sound very different. They all have very different voices, and that's hard to do, especially when you start having a lot of main characters. And 3 is getting up there, but they all are very different, and so they read very different. I know I said very different like 6 times. I'm sorry. I do my editing in writing, not in my verbal cues. Jessamine is, to my understanding, the youngest of the characters, and she is very sheltered, kind of striking it out on her own for the first time, before she really wanted to go on adventures and see the world, and now she's starting to see it for what it really is. And that can be very dangerous. So I really enjoyed kind of seeing these subtle changes in her as she starts to kind of see more of reality as it is. And I feel that it was very well thought out, very well put together and executed. Next we have Lake, and obviously we get from the book description that he is kind of abusing alcohol a little bit in the series. It isn't super strongly on the page. He does say it, and he is a little bit sloppy at times, but you don't see a lot of alcoholism on the page. So if that's something that's a trigger for you, and if it's only like major trigger and not like a minor trigger, then I think you can get away with reading it because it's very subtle. Lake is a little bit jaded, but on his way to Solana, he runs into our third narrator, Chifta. And Lake is like kind of jaded, and he's realizing that he's being exiled, not exiled, and he knows he has to get himself together in order to be the eyes of his queen. And as he is on his way to Solana, he meets Jifta, and he takes a liking to her immediately. And in that moment, you're really rooting for him to like get it together and be the person she needs in that moment. Again, not trying to get too far into spoilers, so I'm just going to leave it there because I figure that if I spoil small parts of the first act, it's not too bad, but if we go into second and third act stuff, it's probably not a good idea. Finally, we have Chifta. She is betrothed to the first prince of... Sorry, I can't remember the name of the country that she's betrothed with, because of her very rich merchant father. All of her other siblings have been basically married off for political marriages, and she is no exception. So she's just going into this hoping that she is at least going to find herself with a good husband and not miserable. And only later in the plot will we find out more of that. Overall, I really love all three of these characters. They take very different perspectives, and despite being very different, as a reader, you want them to be together because it's quite obvious that you think that they're going to get along and be friends. I think that the main themes of this book are adventure isn't necessarily what you think it is. It can be a lot more dangerous than you imagine, and you have to be careful what you wish for a little bit. And also, there are definite themes of love. Lots of characters make different choices in their love for other characters. And you do also see kind of the opposite side of that at one point where someone is making a choice that in some ways would be loving if they had the ability to do that. And they're making choices to be more possessive rather than loving. Okay, so we're going to get into spoiler territory. If you do not want to see a whole bunch of spoilers or hear a whole bunch of spoilers, go ahead and move on to the next section, and you won't hear any more spoilers from me. So I really love how Lake and Jifta kind of almost fall in love at first sight. And I was really kind of hoping that they would like run away with each other, but obviously in a series this long with like 5 books, we're not going to get that immediately, which made me a little bit sad, but it's okay. So my hope is that Lake and Jifta get to have the relationship that they clearly want with each other, or even if they don't get that in the end, I hope that they both find happiness because they're really cool characters. I find that the little twist with Jessamine's character having a twin, it's really weird because like I didn't see it coming, and I feel like if that was going to be part of the plot from the beginning, that I think that the author could have foreshadowed it just a little bit better, like maybe Jessamine mentioning that there was a spare bedroom in the house that no one ever went into or something like that. Like at some point Jessamine feels like something is missing, and it feels a little bit too deep into the book for her to be feeling that way. So I feel like she needed to be feeling that way just a little bit sooner for those kernels to be there leading up to the big reveal. But otherwise, I do like the idea of it. And her losing Greta is actually heartbreaking. And I cried. I mean, I'm not someone who just doesn't cry at books, but I didn't expect myself to be crying over a butterfly. Okay? I think that Jessamine and Lake going to rescue Jifta, the way they did was not the wisest on both of their parts. Maybe Jessamine a little bit less so. She's very young and a little bit more on the impulsive side, but Lake should know better. He is like he's like a fae that has been around for a long time, so he definitely knew he shouldn't have been doing that, and I kind of expected a little better from him, and I do know that like he was in love with Jifta and wanting to rescue her from the fate that she was in at that moment, so I get it. In some ways it was very emotionally charged, but even then I feel like they could have done better, and I think that if they had maybe gotten an extra person in on it, they would have had less problems than they ended up having in the end. Like maybe actually being able to get out of there without bringing any suspicion to the well that they use to go under the mountains instead of over them. I also really like towards the end of the book where Jessamine is protecting herself using like the poison scents that her body produces. I thought that was a really interesting twist. And it was very well foreshadowed because when she does her workout routines, she's not creating a whole lot of the scented stuff. She's creating poisons, but she just doesn't know it yet. So like the groundwork is there, and I hope that it means that she's going to be able to figure out how to create the right stuff that the scented court is looking for in time. That is, if they take her back. I'm also really looking forward to her being able to talk to her mom and find out more about her twin and what happened to him. And I also really like that the magic system is basically like you come into your fae powers at a certain age in your life, and then they kind of phase out in 10 to 15 years, like before you turn 30. And I really think that's like a cool way to do it. And part of me wonders if maybe that is a little bit of foreshadowing for future stuff, like maybe going on with Prince Farachek. But I don't know, maybe we'll see about that later on. All right, on to my rating. I think that you already know where I'm going with this, but let's just go into it. I gave this 5 stars. That said, you might not if you don't like books that are slow starters, because I will say that within the first few chapters, I questioned whether I was going to keep going, just because it is very slow and meticulously paced. So if that's not your style, you might not enjoy this book. And finally, do I recommend this book? Once again, I think 5 stars means that's a yes. But again, it's got that little asterisk. If you have triggers that would keep you from reading it, or if you're not a big fan of very slow-paced, meticulous world building, and very character-driven stories, this one might not be for you. Anyway, that is my review for A Blossom at Midnight. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you are interested in seeing more like this, go ahead and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, hit like. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.